But there's other things going on in boxing. There's more to life than Tank versus Ryan. There's more to life than Crawford versus Spence. There are other things going on in boxing. And we're going to discuss some of those things right here, right now. So, going back to screen share. Shout out to everybody here. Where is it at? So, probably the most interesting news of the day, to me, I thought, because you guys know I've been following this whole thing extremely close for a long time now. Between, Demetrius Andrade and Janibek Alimkhanuly. There's been the whole WBO situation, the Zach Parker fight. Boo getting denied the Zach Parker fight initially, then being granted the Zach Parker fight, then pulling out the Zach Parker fight, then a bunch of nothingness going on with his career for a couple months, and now it's been reported that the WBO World Championship Committee has, in fact, ordered negotiations to begin for a mandatory fight between Demetrius Andrade, who is still the WBO middleweight champion, to take on their interim champion, Janibek. Okay, now, they've both been given 30 days to reach an agreement. The minimum purse bid is $200,000. Okay? Now, we're at the 11th hour of Andrade's career because he really doesn't have a whole lot of leverage to begin with. That belt is really the only thing that gets him anything in boxing because he's higher risk, low reward. He's also a guy that doesn't do a whole lot of interviews. To tell you guys a story, I try to get in touch with Boo Boo recently. I called his dad. I called two other people on his team trying to track him down, and I had no such luck doing it. Even his dad told me he can't even get a hold of Boo Boo. So I'm still working on that interview, but he's not a guy that really goes out of his way to market himself either. So he's not really doing himself any favors. He's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And we're at the 11th hour. He's got to fight this tough, young, hungry contender who a lot of people believe will be the next middleweight champion of the world. If he doesn't fight Janibek, he will lose the only bargaining power he has at any negotiating table, which is the WBO title. So it looks like if Andrade does box this year, the fight we're going to get is the fight between him and Janibek. And this is good news because the reality is a lot of people view this fight for Andrade as, the toughest fight of his career. Now, we don't really know that until they step into the ring, but on paper, Janibek is going to be one of the toughest fighters Andrade has fought. He's a southpaw. He's got punching power in both hands. He's got deep amateur pedigree. He's an Olympian just like Andrade. I'd even venture to say, I know he fought Quigley his last fight, who was an Irish Olympian. But Andrade hasn't fought a ton of Olympians. So this probably maybe the second or the third Olympian he's ever fought. And this is a fight that a lot of people think he's going to lose due to his age, due to his perceived lack of competition, things like that. So I want this fight to happen because, this is the fight that I think would really, really, really get Andrade credibility, respect, and the validity he's seeking for in his career. Things have gotten very interesting with his career. So for those that know, and for those that don't know, where is it? He was promoted by Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn made it very clear that he can't secure the big fights for Andrade because a lot of these guys don't want to fight him for such little money. And it's very high risk and a very big chance they lose. So that contract expired. Eddie Hearn and Andrade have now severed ties. And now, as you guys can see, Demetrius Andrade is acting on behalf of Andrade. So it's hilarious. A lot of people thought that Eddie Hearn was going to be the guy that would deliver Andrade some fights. A lot of people were calling for Al Heyman to be the guy Boo Boo signed with. But in the 11th hour, when things have gotten to their darkest, most treacherous moment in the career of Demetrius Andrade, the guy that has come to save the day is Demetrius Andrade. So to me, that's really the most interesting part about this is seeing Demetrius Andrade involved, in this whole, fiasco, So, listen, I like this fight. I like what this could do for Andrade's career because if he beats Janibek, I think that gives him the leverage because at that point, Andrade will be the guy that's kind of like him. Andrade will have beaten a guy who, much like himself, is a higher risk, low reward opponent. A guy that people aren't exactly jumping up to fight. They're not, banging down the door to fight Janibek Alimkhanuly. And I just hope, look, if Janibek beats Andrade, full credit to him. Janibek's the middleweight champion. He will have in my opinion, beaten the best middleweight in the division in Andrade. Or one of the best middleweights at least. And he can use this win to jumpstart a brilliant career. But if Andrade beats Janibek, then I really don't want to hear anybody discredit his wins, because this is a commonality with his career. When he fought Liam Williams, everyone said, "Oh well, Liam Williams stopped Alontes Fox, and Andrade didn't." So, this is gonna be the hardest fight of his career. And then when he beat Liam Williams, they gave him no credit. They say he hasn't fought anybody, right? They say like, "Oh well, he's never fought a world champion," which is true. He hasn't fought a world champion. He hasn't been afforded the opportunity, but he beat Willie Nelson, who beat Tony Harrison, who became a world champion. So it's not like he beat bum fighters. It's not like Demetrius Andrade's, not a capable, credible, top-level fighter. His Olympic pedigree, amateur pedigree, tells you he's a top-flight fighter. His ability to beat these, guys consistently over years and find ways to win, despite the inactivity, despite sometimes going on the road, that tells you that he is of a certain quality. So you have to respect him, okay? He wins this fight against Janibek. It really should be a springboard towards bigger and better things. It should be a springboard towards a Dea Benavidez fight. It should be a springboard towards a Jamal Charlo fight. But we still know, like 704 Joe said. He said, "I would like to see Andrade versus Charlo," but Charlo is still holding that grudge. And look, the worst thing you can have in life as a man is anger. I've learned that. One thing I've learned in my 27 years of Earth, because I've been through a lot in my life in 27 years. I don't talk about it. I don't bitch and moan about things, but I've been through some things in my life. And I've had reasons I felt to be angry at certain people. But what I've learned is that the worst thing you could do in life is be angry at someone and harbor a grudge, because you're not hurting that person, you're hurting yourself. When you're angry, you can't see straight. When you're angry, you can't make rational decisions with sanity, clarity, and reason. And that goes to Charlo. Jamal Charlo, much like Andrade, they got the same record. They've both been pro around the same amount of time. The same thing you could say for Andrade, you could probably say for Charlo. He's been fighting these guys like Brendan Adams and Montiel, and he hasn't been looking great. And he's falling short in a lot of ways. And he really looks like he's going nowhere in fast. He's on a very fast road straight to nowhere. He had this fight with Sulecki, a guy that Andrade already beat 3 years ago, that he pulled out of, and most people believe he pulled out of it because of tickets not selling. And we still don't hear him or see him showing any sort of urgency to fight Andrade. But then he's the same guy that will go on these interviews and talk about how Canelo's ducking him and about his legacy and things like that. When you got a perfectly fine and good fellow, undefeated American world champion who is more than willing to fight you. He's ready, willing, and able to fight you. Eddie Hearn, when he was promoting Andrade, filed a petition for them to fight. It never wound up happening. And you know what? I'm going to say this. There's the Charlos and PBC and a lot of the PBC, LDBC fanboys, they're very quick to pull the race card, right? They really are. And it's unfortunate. But what they never talk about is you got Al Heyman, a black American, very smart, shrewd businessman. Jamal Charlo, a high-level, successful black American athlete, $1 million fighter, world champion, refusing to give another fellow black American, undefeated, multi-million-dollar, creme de la creme, top shelf fighter like themselves the opportunity. But they never talk about that part. They only talk about perceived racism when it benefits their channel and it goes with their narrative. But never ever talk about it when it's somebody who's not like associated with Al Heyman or the agendas they have pushing. So we need that fight. We need that fight. And I think the Janibek fight will be a very difficult fight for Andrade. Don't get me wrong. He has to take this fight. I think he will forever, never ever be able to live this down for the back and forth that's happened this year if he doesn't take this fight with Janibek Alimkhanuly and get stripped of his title. If he takes it, And if he's able to win, there is absolutely, positively no reason why Andrade shouldn't be getting the fight. Because if we're talking about, I know you can sit here and say he hasn't fought the best guys, but there's a lot of champions in boxing who aren't fighting the best guys that are losing their titles on the scales for other reasons. Look at a guy like Dave Benavidez, who's a talented fighter. He lost his belt on the scale twice, once for cocaine and the other for missing weight. So he showed lack of discipline. Same thing goes for Broner. Same thing goes for a lot of these guys. But meanwhile, you have Andrade, a guy that's held the belt. He's been WBO middleweight champion since October of 2018. So October of this year is gonna mark 4 years since he's been champion, and he's defended the belt 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. He's made 5 defenses of the belt. He's probably one of the longest reigning champions in boxing. He's fought 2 minute challengers over the last few years, and he has brought honor, respect, and class as far as defending the belt against ranked opposition. You got guys like Leo Santa Cruz, right, who have the WBA belt, who haven't even fought the damn weight class in 3 years. You have guys like Benavidez and Broner who lose the title on the scales. You have guys like, I'm not trying to disrespect him because I made it a point to speak positive about him, but you got guys like Canelo Alvarez who will carefully pick and maneuver the way through multiple weight classes. But meanwhile, this guy has actually done sort of what Marvin Hagler used to do. I know he hasn't fought anywhere close to the opposition Marvin Hagler fought when he defended his belt, but he's been fighting like he's been defending his belt, okay? And for whatever the case may be, this division just been in shambles. You got Charlo, who hasn't wanted to fight Andrade. Golovkin, who's just been waiting for Canelo. He finally got his payday, so God bless him. Ryota Murata, who just lost to Golovkin, who didn't really want to fight anybody either. And then now you have Janibek, who's caused stagnation because he's high risk, low reward. You got Jaime Munguia, who's probably, out of everybody, the biggest disgrace in all of this because he's being protected to no end by Xanafer Promotions and Golden Boy. So Demetrius Andrade deserves a shot, and if he can beat Janibek, this should be the gateway to that signature fight. Or who knows? Maybe this is the fight. Sometimes the fights that we overlook in boxing for a fighter actually want to be in the fights that define their career. So who knows? Maybe the Janibek fight is the fight that defines his career, and the fight where people say, you know what, this Andrade guy, it took him a while to get his shot, but when he got his shot, he made good of his talent and things like that. So we'll see what happens. But that's the news. WBO has ordered Andrade versus Janibek. I really hope the fight does happen. So yeah.